So I froze an opal. Now, I froze this opal by complete accident. And it is an embarrassing story to tell, but I'm here to tell you because it's an example of the toughness of black opal. I'll give you the context and the story. I was in Lightning Ridge for weeks, working out in the bush, driving back and forth from Sydney a couple of times to see my mum, and driving back overnight, sleeping in the mountains in the freezing cold in my truck, and then driving out, generally working. And then I had to fly all the way back into the US on my way to do a show in Geneva. Now I had backed up all this cutting work that I had to do. I had rough stones to cut, I had a really important stone to cut, as well as many, many other projects. I've got businesses in Australia, one in the US, and so I've got clients everywhere from Europe to Asia to Australia, all asking me questions, all saying, hey, can you send me this, can you send me that? Do this. My accountant's calling me up going, hey, where have you been? What are you doing? My insurance broker, hey, what about this? And so the net result of that is I'm working 20 hours a day. And I'm just backed up, I'm cutting till 3, 4 in the morning, trying to get these projects done. But these important stones, they take time. And you can't rush these kind of things. And so I'm taking time with that. And then on top of that, all this work is kind of piling up, which results in multiple all-nighters. If you've never been to Switzerland and imported anything of high value into Switzerland, you would know that it is a bit of a nightmare. And it has gotten progressively worse over the years. And so right before I was supposed to go to Geneva, I got hit with having to do all the exports myself. I had just a mountain of work, and in Switzerland, importing through customs, you have to list each stone individually. So I'm listing each stone individually and blah, blah, blah. And anyone that's seen our inventory, my inventory, would know that it's a lot. It's a lot to do. And each one has to be weighed, each one has to have a price, each one has to be listed in a certain way that it all adds up, so I can send it to the customs broker, so then I can enter into Switzerland and not get thrown in jail. Or even worse, have all of the goods impounded and then be completely screwed. So I get hit with all this work the night before I'm supposed to go. And so I'm just absolutely in a bad place. And I have to list all these stones individually from 5 p.m. till working all the way until 9 in the morning the next morning. So I've got 5 stones and I'm putting them on the polishing wheel here like such. 4:30 in the morning, eyes are a little blurry, they're a little red, feeling a little worse for wear. So after you polish them, loop them, turn the machine off as well, advisably. Take them here, and then I take them to the freezer, right? So the way I was taught, and the way it's generally always been since refrigerators and freezers were invented, is that when you have an opal on a dop stick, which is a wooden stick with green wax. So you melt the wax and you attach the opal to it, it dries, and then you can cut, maneuver, and hopefully it doesn't fly off, but inevitably they do. In order to then remove the opal from the dop stick, you place it in the freezer for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, sometimes 2 minutes. And now I've been cutting stones since I was 5, 6. I had some amazing mentors in cutting who are just legendary in the black opal business, and people I really admire and look up to, and that's the way that, they did it, so it's the way I do it. And frankly, it's a good litmus test. If you put it in a freezer for a minute, you know the opal's solid, you know that the way that it reacts to a freezing cold environment after being put on very hot wax, you know it's solid, you know the opal is solid, and you know that it's, can withstand those kind of temperature extremes, which makes it stable. I'm gonna pause here and I'm gonna say, You would say, well, why does opal need to be like that? It's not just opal, trust me. This happens with diamonds, this happens with emeralds, this happens with sapphires. Sometimes they can be sensitive to heat. Diamonds at a certain size, when polished on the wheel, they get too hot, they can literally explode. So it happens with every gemstone. It is a very fine, very expensive thing that you need to take care with. At the same time, you need to test it a little bit to make sure that when I sell it, I can give you my 100% guarantee on the stone. Which brings me back to this stone, which is the opal in question. Now, this is one of the absolute finest opals I own. It is a red stone with purple, this amazing kind of violet purple in the background, which is truly one of the rarest colors you'll ever see in black opal. I showed this to my father, for example, and he said he'd only seen this color in one other opal. So it gives you an idea of the rarity. I put all of these stones in the freezer, and then I'm taking them out, and I'm looking at this one, and I'm going, okay, it needs just a quick repolish. There's a little scuff on the side. So by this time it's 4:30 in the morning. And granted, I've been working for a couple months straight. Okay, so I'm running on empty. So you can imagine I'm working away here. This is where I'm doing the custom stuff. I'm on my computer, on my laptop. Got a little YouTube playing in the background, you know, just quietly. Boom, boom, listing all the stones. So I take the stone and I put it in the freezer, gently next to the mixed berries. I get back to the polishing wheel, then I run back out, I keep the exporting. I put this stone in the freezer. I forget about it. Got everything to my customs broker, all the documents, they all check out, tick, tick, tick. All the stones are in order, boom, 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 everything, except for this one. This little guy is in the freezer for 2 weeks. So I get to Geneva, I'm setting up the booth, and I'm going through the stones, and it hits me. No, you didn't, did you? Surely, you didn't put this absolute gem in the freezer and forget about it. You idiot. And you can imagine the internal monologue that I'm having, just lashing myself, all kinds of cuss words. If you've ever met any Australians or you know Australians, you know the language. But what can I do? There's nothing I can do. I just spend the next 2 weeks working diligently, wondering about this stone. And I'm wondering because it's frozen. Is the thing going to explode? What's going to happen? Has anyone put a very fine black opal in the freezer for 2 weeks? Am I going to get back and it's in 3 pieces? Surely it's not. Surely it's just by the cutting wheel where I might have left it, or I put it in the safe for safekeeping. I wouldn't have just left it in the freezer. Incorrect. First thing I do, I get through the door into my apartment, make a beeline straight for the freezer, and lo and behold, there she is. This stone sat neatly there on the tray next to the mixed berries. Wonderful. So I'm hugely concerned, right? All the revenue that I make goes straight back into investing back in the business, whether that be inventory, equipment, all of this stuff, you know, and I'm very aggressive with it. So the margin sometimes can be very tight. I cannot afford to lose a stone that is over $50,000, right? This is one of the rarest stones I own. And beyond just the money, having the idiocy to ruin the beauty of this stone would just be an absolute tragedy, right? Can't let that happen. Won't let that happen. So I take it out and I place it in water to kind of slowly thaw out a steak maybe. And I put it in water and I wait, let it kind of, you know, just slowly come back to room temperature, and I'm worried, I'm sweating, I'm nervous. Then finally, after a couple of hours, I take it out and I put it under the loupe. I'm having a close inspection, I'm concerned. Lo and behold, nothing. Absolutely not a problem, not a scratch, not a break, not a scuff, not a fracture, not a fissure, nothing is opened up. The thing is absolutely bulletproof. I'm being honest with you. I'm admitting my mistakes and my absolute screw up in order to highlight the fact that opal is a lot tougher than you think. And I refer to black opal, okay? I'm referring to Lightning Ridge opal because each opal from different regions has a different characteristic. Opal from Ethiopia, for example, opal from Mexico, geologically, the way it's formed makes it a very different stone. It makes it slightly more fragile. And as you know, particularly with Ethiopian opal, it tends to be a lot more fragile, a lot more sensitive to things like that. Heat, cold, water, everything. So black opal is different. So when someone tells you, okay, well, opal's too fragile to put into a ring, oh, opal's, it's too sensitive, I'm too afraid to work with it. I put this stone in the freezer for 2 weeks, okay? Brought it out, thawed it out, and it was fine. Now, why is black opal a lot tougher than you think? In terms of a scratch test, yes, a diamond may scratch a black opal. Yes, a sapphire may scratch a black opal. However, diamonds also can be very fragile. Because of the way a diamond is faceted, you hit a diamond on the edge of a facet, it can break. Okay, I recently made a ring with many kind of pink diamonds, and as a setter was setting all these pink melee, small pink diamonds, they broke 3. Okay, sometimes in the points in some of the facets, they can be a little more fragile. Sapphires, they can have points where they can be much more fragile, where you have to be careful. Emeralds, the same thing. So, the Mohs scale is one thing. In terms of toughness, it is another thing. So if you ever study at the Gemological Institute of America, for example, which I am familiar with, some of the courses, it would tell you that jade is very prone to scratching if you rub it up against a diamond, but you can throw it against a wall because it's so tough. The way that it's structured is so tough. Black opal has properties like that. It is a lot tougher than you think. The whole mining process, okay, these things get dug out of the ground with just a giant metal claw that rips them, puts it into a vacuum cleaner that goes 60 feet up, tossed into a truck, into the back of a truck, and then gets put into a modified cement mixer and gets swirled around for 24 hours and then comes out. That whole process alone is very rough. And then it gets cut. There's a lot of heat in the cutting process. There's also a lot of cold when you put it in the freezer. So it goes through a very tough process. And it couldn't go through that process if it was a very fragile stone. So now that the opal has survived this arduous test and come out unscathed, I have to give the stone a name that's befitting of the process that it's been through, that's befitting of everything that's happened. And there's only one name really to give it. And this stone is now called Elsa, after frozen, because it survived 2 weeks in the freezer, came out completely unscathed. So you can see this stone now as Elsa.